Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Denver, Colorado. I'm so glad you could join me today. I have a Christmas card for you. I've got a little catching up to do to get my Christmas cards moving along. And in this one, it's pretty simple, but I love the sentiment, and I think it's one that's easily reproducible. And so if you're looking for some cards, I know that when I make Christmas cards, because I make a lot of designs, I try to do 5 or 6 or 10 of any one, and then move on to another design and then do a bunch like that as well. Before I start, I just want to say thanks again to everyone that has written to me. The sentiments keep coming in, and I am greatly comforted by them. Thank you so much. All right, well, let's just get started with this pretty little Christmas card. Here is my card, and I am using this pretty Christmas paper that we have. It's called Tidings of Christmas, and it's 6x6 DSP, and this is 48 sheets, so it's the equivalent of a 12x12 pack. And I used this pattern, and it's got some awfully pretty little Christmas patterns in it, and it's got some very neutrals as well. And here's some more of that neutral in the back. Very pretty paper, though, I think. Bolder patterns and some softer patterns, and reds. It's using cherry cobbler, and then Evening Evergreen and Soft Succulent are the ones that I used, and then it also has Whisper White in it. Now, the stamp set and the die set that I'm using for this card is, the die set is called Merriest Frames, and it's got 2 sets of dies. There's actually quite a few dies in this set, and I'm using one of the poinsettia dies. I think I used all of the leaf dies. I tried using this, and I'll show you another version of it that I kind of messed around with. I used this square die, and like I said, all of the leaf dies in here. And instead, I didn't even realize that I had a larger one of these. So I cut 3 this size, and I'll show you what it was I cut exactly. And the stamp set is one that goes with this, and it is called Merriest Moments. And I used Joy, and then I used A Joyful Christmas to You and Yours, and that sentiment is on the inside of this card. Joyful Christmas to You and Yours. Very simple little card, but I think it's a pretty card, and it's one that could be easily repeatable. So that's the stamp set, or the stamp bundle that I'm using, Merriest Moments and Merriest Frames dies. And this one is absolutely gorgeous in this frame die. This one, it cuts out all of these pieces around it, and I tried cutting it in the colored vellum that we have, and then ended up not liking exactly the way it came out. So I've made a couple of versions of this one before I settled on this, and I decided less was more on this one. So let me tell you what you need to have to make this card. I used a Whisper White, I guess it's not Whisper White, it is basic white base, 8.5 by 5.5, scored and folded at 4 1/4. I used a piece of scrap of the cherry cobbler to cut out my poinsettia. I used a little bit of the Evening Evergreen Shimmer Vellum. I used Soft Succulent. Now I have this piece of Soft Succulent, which is 4 by 5 1/4, and that's used on the inside. And then I have a piece of Evening Evergreen that is 4 by 5 1/4 to mat my designer series paper. And then I thought this paper was just so pretty. It actually has bits of blue in it that one could use, and you could accent or back this one in, let's see, what blue is that? It's probably, yeah, Misty Moonlight. And so, and then it also uses Sahara sand. So there's some really interesting colors in here. But this one is going to mat like this, go on the front of our card. Then this is a piece. So this outer piece is 4 by 5 1/4. This piece of designer series paper is 3 3/4 by 5. This for the inside is 4 by 5 1/4. Then this piece is 3 1/4 by 2 1/2, and it's the Soft Succulent Shimmer Vellum. And I thought it would be kind of fun to use the light and then contrast with the dark leaves. So I cut out all of the leaves, and then I cut out 3. I did stamp from the stamp set the smaller poinsettia and cut it out. Then I cut out a blank one so that I could get 2 sets of leaves here. And then I cut this one in the Evening Evergreen. Like I said, I didn't even see that there was a bigger one. You can certainly do that if you'd like, just to add some dark greenery around the edges of this one. So I cut that in half so I could do something like that. And then I have a piece that is 1/2 inch by 5 1/4 for the inside. And my 2 stamps, A Joyful Christmas to You and Yours, and then the Joy stamp. And I'm using Evening Evergreen ink, and I'm using Versamark. Then I'm using the Holiday Rhinestones here, and the Evening Evergreen sheer ribbon, I think it's called. Evening Evergreen open weave ribbon is what it's called, for my little bow here, just to add some texture. All right, let's just get started. It's pretty fast, pretty easy little card. And I think for Christmas, we want something that has a nice impact, but is easy, because if you're making multiples, that can be difficult. I know I've done it to myself several times where I've made a beautiful card, but the design is so complicated that it takes me forever to actually get my designs done. I've got my seal here, and I'm going to go ahead and put that down on the front of my card, getting a similar border all the way around. Then I can go ahead and adhere my designer series paper, and I'm going to do the same thing. Get that centered on the front of our card here, and there we go. Now this piece, which is that 3 1/4 by 2 1/2, I'm also going to center on here. And I'm just going to put a little tiny bit of seal in the corners on this. And I think with all the other stuff going on, we're just not going to see much of that adhesive on there. And I think it'll end up working out just fine. And when we put it on this way, we know we can put some additional seal right in here, because that's where our poinsettia is going to go. So I am going to put a little extra right there. And then I'm going to center this on the front of my card. And I'm just eyeballing that. But there we go. Now what I did was, this is cherry cobbler, and I did use my cherry cobbler ink to stamp, so it would be tone on tone, to stamp this poinsettia image on here, and then die cut this one out. And then I used, let's see, did I use glue dots? I don't know that I did. But I think we sure can. I'm just going to use a couple of glue dots to put these two pieces together. So I'm going to put my big glue dot here on this side, and then go ahead and set this so that the petals are roughly in between one another, so my poinsettia looks nice and full. And then these pieces are going to go on the back here to add some greenery on the outside of my poinsettia. And so I'm going to put just a bit of seal on the back of this, and then take this one that I cut in half and put part of it on this side to get some greenery outside that poinsettia, and then put this one more or less on this side. And there we go. There's my poinsettia built. And then I'm going to add a couple of dimensionals to the back of that to get it ready to go on my card. Now you're probably wondering when I'm planning to go ahead and put my Versamark and my item on here, but I did want to get this stuck down a little bit, and actually this did work. So I'm going to just add a little bit of my embossing buddy here, your anti-stick powder, whichever kind you have, and get that done, and then use my Versamark to put my joy message right up here in this corner. And you'll see here I put it on this one way up in the corner, and I think on this one I'm going to move it down just a hair and put that joy right in there. See how that does. I've got my white embossing powder here and my spoon, and I'm just going to add a little of that embossing powder right over my word joy, and then just knock that off. And there we go. There's my embossing opportunity with joy. Now I'll move that out of the way, and I'll quiet the video while I use my heat tool. Now what I did on this one is I wanted this panel to be pinned down on my card so that it wouldn't warp when I put my embossing on there. And I heat my tool quite a bit before I put it on here, again to avoid warping this piece of paper very much, and then reel directly on there when the tool is nice and hot, and very quickly emboss that piece, and you'll be successful that way. All right, so now we have our pretty little poinsettia, which we're going to add to the card and put that down right over the glue that we put on, right in here. And then I've got these Evening Evergreen Shimmer Vellum leaves that I thought would add some fun contrast to this. And if I remember right, this one ends up being cut down because it's a bit long. But I like the nature of this one because it's nice and ragged. It's the only thing I can think of to call it. And let's see, I'm going to get my silicone mat here for gluing. Move these out of the way. And I'm just going to put a little bit of seal on the back of this leaf, and I'm going to stick it under this end so that it ends up sticking out and kind of framing around the bottom of the poinsettia like that. And then this one, which is kind of an interesting shape, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the top end of that and put that underneath the poinsettia and this other leaf, again, to continue to frame around the joy. Now then, I'm going to stick another little one just because it's just to fill in and add a little depth on this side. One there, and then I'm going to put one at the top, and I'm putting my glue that on the part that's going to go underneath the poinsettia. So right in there. So the shape of my decoration here frames that joy, and I think that'll work out pretty well. I probably don't need these leaves here. If you wanted to fill some more in, you sure could, but I think I've got enough on there. So I'm going to move some of this material out of the way here and make some room, and we're ready to do some additional decorations on here. And what I did was I used our holiday rhinestones, and I used the ones that are called pumpkin pie, these kind of gold ones, and I think that they mimic gold like the center of a poinsettia might be. And I put 3 little ones on the center of my poinsettia, just like that. Then I used one of the larger ones from down here right in this corner, and on this one I'm just going to add a few more little gems around the card, just because I can. I'm going to put one right up in here because I can see a little bit of that glue, and maybe that's enough. 3 plus the 3, well, maybe one more. So I get that odd number on the card. We'll put one right down in here. There we go. All right. Now, I don't like that there. It looks too much like a formula. Up there. Okay. There we go. All right. Now, I have my Evening Evergreen open weave ribbon, and I'm just going to make a simple little bow, and there we go. We've got a pretty little bow, and that little bow is going to just sit right here in the corner, and I'm going to add that with a glue dot, and put this right down in this corner right here. Makes me want to move this rhinestone where we'll be able to see it, maybe right up in here. There we go. And so there's my bow on the front, and the front of our card is decorated. All right, now for the inside, we have a bit of stamping to do. We have this one, which is the one that says, let me just clean this off a bit. Okay. And it says, "A joyful Christmas to you and yours." And I'm going to use my Evening Evergreen stamp pad here. And because this is photopolymer, I need to get this up on a cushion. This is a Stamparatus cushion. I find that it's very thin, but it works. It's just enough for this. And I'm going to put this, "A joyful Christmas to you and yours." And on this one, I think I'm going to angle it a bit here in the corner. That way we don't have to worry about straight. Anytime you're worried about straight, put your stamp at an angle and it'll solve that problem. Make sure we've got a good image there. a joyful Christmas to you and yours. Then we have this strip of our designer series paper that we're going to add here to the bottom of this piece of paper, and then we'll put this inside and our project will be complete. Now, I'll do Christmas cards that are certainly more elaborate, but I thought I would start this one off by being pretty simple, so easy to replicate. And this is one that you could do in an assembly line process and turn out 10 of them in no time and have your Christmas cards well underway. So now I can add my seal to the back of my card. And then this will go on the inside of our card. Just like that. And there we've got a pretty little Christmas card. Isn't that fun? It's simple and yet striking. I love this pattern paper, particularly this pattern, but like I said, in that pack, there are several that are really, really attractive. So that is my project for the day. Thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel today. I do so appreciate it. I do believe that I'm going to go one more week with doing just one video on Friday. And then I think after that, I keep saying that, but I think after that I'll be able to go back to my more regular schedule of Tuesdays and Fridays. So thanks again, and I'll be back soon with more cards, more projects, and more tips. Bye.